Okay, today I'm finally gonna put the entire idea of objectively good to bed. But first, we need to talk about parallel universes. For starters, let's make a distinction between the idea of truth and the idea of observable truth. You see, let's assume that our universe is finite, or that there is a finite level of understanding that we have of our universe. Because if our universe is finite, there could be an entire other universe beyond it, something beyond our ability to perceive, which has different rules than what we believe to be the rules of our reality. So, it is entirely possible that we're living in the Matrix, as people like to say, to, boil it down to a simple term that most people know. But if there are rules that apply to our reality that we don't understand, that might fundamentally change what we think about our reality, then it's fair to say that we cannot speak for truth. We cannot speak for real truth, truth with a capital T, because there's a limit to how much we can observe as human beings. Our brains can only process so much. Our eyes can only see so many things. Our things that we have to detect things can only detect so much, Just as we've discovered new spectrums of light and sound over time because of our advances in technology, there may yet be full spectrums of things we cannot perceive and will never have the means by which to do so. Ergo, it is useless for us to try to speak on behalf of real truth. Now, on the other hand, what we can do is speak on observable truth, which I'm going to posit the alternate name functional truth. Truth that actually helps us to understand our universe. Because if we just say, well, fuck it, we'll never know anything, then we can't make any progress. But at least we can take a look at our universe within the limits of its existence, and we can try to understand its mechanisms as best we can. And we can, have this idea of objectivity, of things objectively existing or, being real. Like, I can say, my hand objectively exists, and that is functionally true. There's no reason really to believe that it's not true, other than that I can't speak for absolute truth. No one can. So, as far as I'm concerned, as far as anyone's concerned, functionally, it is objectively true that my hand is here. Now, here's the question. Is it objectively true that my hand is good? That it's good that I have this hand? Well, that's where we start crossing into this other world of opinions. Because there is absolutely no metric in terms of reality for proving whether something is good or bad. Unless you believe in God and you know what your God thinks of the world, then there is no way to say what is good or what is bad. Because even if you said, being alive is functionally objectively good, right? We all want to be alive. We all want to propagate life. But in the eyes of the universe, in the grand scheme of things, maybe we're causing more problems than we're solving. Maybe all of human existence is a bad thing. Now, again, this is where we have functional morality in addition to functional truth. We say, for us, from our subjective experience, being alive is a good thing. So we should try to propagate life. We should try to propagate our own existence because, as far as we're concerned, that is a moral good. So morals, while they have a functional purpose, don't really exist outside of the human mind. They are not an observable fact of the universe. We really can't know a moral good or bad, or prove it on any universal scale, just as we can't prove a universal truth. We can only have this functional morality. So, knowing what we know now, how do we make the logical leap to suggesting that there is objectively good art? Because first of all, the idea of objectivity in this case is not even applicable to good. There is no objectively good. There is no objectively bad, because good and bad is entirely in the eyes of the beholder. And again, while you can say that there is a functional moral system that makes sense for most of humanity, There's a lot of people who will disagree with that, and you can't really prove them wrong. That's why religion is so prevalent and why it's so hard to disprove it, because we as humans don't have an understanding of real truth, because we cannot perceive everything. Some of us have beliefs about what real truth is, and through those beliefs, we might carry out things that we believe are morally good that other people don't think are, and maybe even by way of science can be proven to not be good for the greater humanity, but in that person's mind, because they're believing in something higher than science, something higher than perceivable reality, perceivable objectivity, they believe they're doing something right, and we can't really prove them wrong. We can only decide collectively by consensus that it's a wrong thing to do, and we can try to curb that wrongness from our society. So let's apply this to art. Where does the idea of objectively good art come from? Where does it begin? Well, it necessarily has to begin with an arbitrary decision, right? Like someone holds up one picture, and someone holds up another picture, and someone says, that one's better. And then we observe the techniques by which that one was made, and we say, that is what good is, those techniques. But if something else comes along that breaks those rules, and we also think that thing is good, then that means that now there's more than one version of what is good. Because what is good is always determined by who's observing it. If I look at this poster and I say, I was going to compare these two, but they're drawn by the same guy. So if I look at this poster and I say that this poster is good, then we look at all the techniques that were used to make it, and we say that those are the techniques used to make something good. But then I look at this poster, made with entirely different techniques, and I also say that is good, but it's not using the same techniques as this one, yet they're both good. So now the idea of what is good has been expanded further. So, if we tried to adhere everything to this one standard that was thought up at the beginning, like the first time someone saw something and thought it was good, and then everyone said, that's how you make good, but then we never expand on it, then it eventually will lose meaning. Because we're comparing, like, let's say that everyone agreed that this picture was good, and then this picture came along, and it's not the same. So we said, well, that one's not good objectively, because if it was objectively good, it would be this. But we all think it's good. So the problem is we've gotten away. We've changed the meanings here. Like, these should both be considered good, but because we've created an objective standard, we're only thinking of this as good and not this. Do you see where the problems arise here? All throughout history, there have been ideas of what is objectively good, and those ideas eventually get challenged because people find that they like something else. Let's take, like, surrealism, right? Like, at a time, what was considered a good painting was to be realistic. And then at some point, someone started making paintings that were surreal, and people liked those paintings. So at the time, there were people saying, well, those paintings are objectively bad because they don't adhere to the standard of what is good, and yet so many people liked the surreal paintings that those then became good. They became objectively good because objectively a lot of people liked them. So, that's why the standard always has to be changing, because now we look back at surrealism and we study it as an art movement and we see it as like, we can all explain what's good about it, but the reason that it became good is that we all agreed it was good. This is why I've taken to saying that there is no objective good, there is consensus good, because objective implies truth. It implies something that exists beyond humans, something that we don't decide, something that is inherent in reality. If we were to say, like, the color red inherently evokes a certain emotion in the human brain because of the way that the brain is wired, then we might say that that is an objective fact, that red causes this emotion because the brain always works that way. Now, of course, we're probably going to find outliers of people whose brains don't work that way, but we can probably say that. But the fact is that that's not the case, because red is informed by culture. Red means something because of what it means to individual people, and it can mean different things to different people. So there is no objective standard of what red stands for and what red means. So, for every individual, there is their own perception of everything. For each individual person, you are who you are through the experiences that have shaped you, and you come to every piece of art with that baggage, and it's all determined by you. Now, if you're someone who has learned about convention, or appreciates convention, appreciates things that are widely held to be good things, then your opinions will be closer to consensus. But that doesn't make it objective fact. It doesn't mean it's objectively good. It means that you agree with a lot of people. Because there is no objectively good. It all comes from people. It's all determined by people. Something only becomes good after observation. It doesn't just... It's not good in the eyes of the universe. The universe doesn't fucking care. The universe has no opinion of art. Humans have opinions of art. We decide something is good. Enough of us say it's good. We reach the consensus that it's good. There is no other meaning by which something is good, because good is not an objective concept. It doesn't exist outside of people. So we collectively have to decide something. That's not objectivity. That's consensus. It's objectively true that the consensus is this, because you can observe you can observe all the people out there, hold them up to a vote. If it's 75% upvotes and we decide that that's the metric by which something becomes good because that's what we as a society have determined, then we can objectively say that by the standards of this society, this work is considered good within this society. But that doesn't mean that the work is objectively good. It only means exactly what I just said. There is no objectively good. There is consensus good. And the consensus should always be evolving, because as soon as someone observes something new and says that's good, then the consensus has changed, because the consensus is everyone's opinions. So if let's say this picture comes along and it's nothing like these two, and no one has an opinion on it yet, and it doesn't reflect anything that the techniques were used for these two. By the way, this is all metaphorical, if that wasn't clear, that I'm not literally saying that this doesn't use any of the same techniques. But if this next poster came along and used none of the same techniques as the other two, and people said, well, it's objectively bad, and I said, but I like it, then consensus on what is good has changed, because I just changed it. It is no longer universal that this thing is bad. Now, it is a widely held subjective opinion that this thing is bad, but other people think this thing is good, such as myself. And if enough people think it's good, then the consensus changes. And that's why I think there's a real danger in saying, I like it, but it's objectively bad. Because all you're saying is that according to the pre-existing consensus, it's bad. But that's not the consensus anymore, because you just changed the consensus by liking it. So you're really reflecting fucking nothing. You're reflecting an old idea, an outdated model that is no longer true, because your opinion has changed reality. It has changed what is the consensus. That's why it's fucking pointless to try to review things by what you think the consensus is, because the consensus is ever evolving and is determined by every individual collectively being a part of it. Fuck! I'm so mad about this. I don't understand how this is so fucking hard for people to grasp. I don't get how anyone fucking thinks there could be objective good and bad when it makes no logical fucking sense. What is the logic? When people talk about objective good, then they're always just like, oh, but you can prove that it's objectively good because it's well drawn. Well, what does well drawn mean? You decided it. We all decided it. We looked at well drawn and said, we will define this as well drawn. Well, guess what? Well drawn changes as soon as you decide something else is well drawn. What is well drawn? Is it how much time goes into drawing it? Is it how much the person has practiced? Because I've seen drawings by fucking children who haven't practiced at all that I thought were cool. You know, that, like, you can objectively say that he doesn't have 20 years of technique behind him. That doesn't make the art not good. It's good and bad. Those words are subjective. There are objective things you can say, like, they put effort into that, or it took time to make, or that person sure did practice for a long time, but none of that means that it's good. Because good is entirely fucking subjective and meaningless to anyone except the person saying it. I have taken a shit and thought it was good before. No one else will think it's good. It's only good to me because it's my shit. You know what I'm saying? Oh, fuck! I don't get how this is hard. I don't get why I have to explain this. I've been doing this for 10 fucking years, explaining this over and over again. And yet somehow, every comment section on every fucking video is about, well, you're not being objective. No shit! Because, I mean, I am objectively stating the opinions that I objectively have. You know, my subjective experience is being related to you. Like, I can objectively say that I liked this show, that I thought it was good. That doesn't make it objectively good, but it is objectively true that I liked it. Where is it coming from? Where are people getting this idea? Where, like, every single thing that you're thinking right now is objectively good. Ask yourself, where'd it come from? Where did you decide that that thing was objectively good? Who decided it? Where was it written? And does that person's opinion matter? Like I mean, let's say it's a college thing. Like, if you go to college and they teach you in Screenwriting 101 that this is how to write a good screenplay. Okay, well, if I break all those rules and release a movie and everyone loves it, then guess what? I wrote a good screenplay because everyone loves it. It might not fit into your preconceived notion of what a good screenplay is, but the fact is that everyone loves it. So where does objectively good play into that? You know, people will say like, Transformers movies are popular, but they're objectively bad because they break this, and this rule. Yeah, well, guess what? Those rules don't matter because a lot of people like those movies. So, like, objectivity has nothing to do with it. The consensus is the movies are well liked. Maybe not critically. You can say critically panned, but that doesn't mean hated by everyone, which is why I'm careful to use phrases like that in my videos. I'll say like critically beloved versus popular. Neither one of those means objectively good or bad, you know, but they are interesting perspectives. Like, it tells you who liked it. As opposed to, neither one of those opinions is better than the others. The critics aren't better than the other people. They're just a different perspective. Critics might all like their opinions more and like one another's opinions more, but that doesn't make them better opinions than everyone else, because there is no better. There's no better when it comes to opinions. There just is the ones that interest you. There's no fucking objectivity in opinions. That's what makes them opinions, and it's all opinion. Oh my god. I hope I've made myself clear. I honestly, if I get a comment on this video about how objectively good is totally a thing, then I'm going to think you're a fucking idiot. I mean, I already did, but now I doubly will, because I don't get how you can think about any of this and still come to that conclusion. How can you think for a second about the nature of how opinions come to be and then still come to the conclusion that there is an objective good? How? Please, explain your logic. Detail it all, you know? When I get comments like that, when I get comments that are like, but there's totally objectively good, and then they don't provide any logic behind why, and I'm just like, you failed me. Because in my video, I had logic. I had my points right there. You could have listened to that. You could have figured that out, that all that shit I said made sense. But instead, you've gone over here and taken your opinion and slapped it down in front of me and said, like, well, this is true. And I'm like, says who? Why should I believe you? God damn. I got so heated just now. Cringe life forever, dog.